Jake Morrison had been captain of the Liberty Star for 3 years. He was a good captain. His crew trusted him. He made smart choices and kept everyone safe. But nothing had prepared him for this day. The ship's alarm was quiet now, but Jake's heart still beat fast. On the big screen in front of him, he could see the largest alien ship he had ever seen. It was black and covered with sharp edges. Weapons stuck out from every side. The ship was 3 times bigger than the Liberty Star. "Captain, they're still following us," said Amy Foster. She was the ship's sensor officer. Her job was to watch for other ships and dangerous things in space. Amy was young but very good at her job. Ben Collins sat at the navigation station. He was plotting courses that would let them escape if they needed to run. Ben had been doing this job for 10 years. He knew that running would not help them today. The alien ship was too fast and too strong. "Any word from them yet?" Jake asked. Lisa Parker worked at the communications station. She shook her head. "Nothing, Captain. They're just following us." Jake looked at the screen again. The alien ship looked like a giant metal monster. He had heard stories about ships like this. They belonged to the Vorthak. Everyone in space knew about the Vorthak. They were the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy. The Vorthak were 12 feet tall. Their skin was like crystal armor. Their claws could cut through steel. They had conquered dozens of worlds. No one had ever beaten them in a fight. Most people ran when they heard a Vorthak ship was coming. "Captain," Lisa said suddenly. "They're sending a message." Jake took a deep breath. "Put it on screen." The view screen changed. Now Jake could see inside the alien ship. A huge creature stood in front of the camera. It had 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Its body was covered in shiny crystal-like armor. 2 smaller aliens stood behind it. "Humans of the vessel Liberty Star," the alien said. Its voice was deep and strong. "I am Kethvar of the Vorthak Dominion. We have traveled far to find you." Jake stepped forward. He tried to look brave even though he was scared. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. Why are you looking for us?" Kethvar's 4 eyes looked right at Jake. "Your species has been watched, Captain Morrison. We have studied how you live. We have seen how you treat your young ones. We come to ask for something very important." "What do you want?" Jake asked. "We must speak face to face. Will you come to our ship?" Jake's crew looked worried. Tony Brooks was Jake's first officer. He stepped closer to the captain. "Sir, that might not be safe." Kate Sullivan was in charge of ship security. She also looked worried. "Captain, we don't know what they want. This could be a trap." Jake thought for a moment. The Vorthak could destroy his ship easily if they wanted to. They didn't need to trick him. "How many people can I bring?" "Bring 3 others," Kethvar said. "We will make sure you are safe." An hour later, a small shuttle carried Jake and 3 of his crew to the Vorthak ship. Tony Brooks came as first officer. Kate Sullivan came to protect them. Dr. Helen Ward came because she knew about alien life forms. The inside of the Vorthak ship was huge. The walls were made of the same crystal material as their armor. Everything was built for creatures much bigger than humans. Jake felt very small walking through the long hallways. They entered a large room. Kethvar was waiting for them. 3 other Vorthaks stood with him. They were all huge and covered in weapons. Jake had never felt so scared in his life. "Please sit," Kethvar said. Chairs that were the right size for humans had been brought into the room. Jake and his crew sat down. The Vorthak remained standing. They looked down at the humans like giants looking at children. "You are probably wondering why we asked you here," Kethvar said. "Yes," Jake replied. "Your people are known as great warriors. Why do you need humans?" Kethvar was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice sounded sad. "For 20 generations, the Vorthak have been the strongest species in space. We have won every war. Our ships are the best. Our weapons are the most powerful. We fear nothing." He paused and looked at the other Vorthak. "But we are dying." Dr. Helen Ward leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Another Vorthak stepped forward. This one was even bigger than Kethvar. I am Zothmar. I lead our armies. I have seen 1,000 battles. But I cannot save my own children. Your children? Kate Sullivan asked. Our young are born fierce, Zothmar said. They fight from the moment they can move. They fight each other. They fight everything. Most die before they grow up. Kethvar nodded sadly. In each group of young ones, maybe 1 or 2 survive. The rest kill each other. We are great warriors, but we are terrible parents. Jake was starting to understand. How many young do you lose? Too many, Kethvar said. Our population gets smaller every year. Soon there will be no more Vorthak. Dr. Ward asked, have you tried changing how you raise them? We have tried everything, Zothmar said. We have tried keeping them apart. We have tried training them differently. Nothing works. The fighting instinct is too strong. Kethvar looked directly at Jake. That is why we come to you. I don't understand, Jake said. We have watched humans for many months, Kethvar explained. You do something we cannot do. You care for young ones that are not your own. You make weak things strong instead of letting them die. You teach cooperation. Tony Brooks spoke up. You've been spying on us? We have been learning, Kethvar corrected. We have seen human parents adopt children. We have seen you save baby animals. We have seen you help those who cannot help themselves. Kate Sullivan was suspicious. What exactly are you asking us to do? Kethvar's 4 eyes looked at each human, in turn. We want you to raise our young. The room was completely silent. Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. The Vorthak wanted humans to take care of their children. The most dangerous species in the galaxy wanted to trust humans with their future. You want us to babysit? Tony asked. More than that, Zothmar said. We want you to teach them, to show them how to live without always fighting, to help them survive. Dr. Ward was thinking like a scientist. This has never been tried before. We don't know if it would work. We know it might fail, Kethvar admitted. But doing nothing means we all die. At least this way there is hope. Jake looked at his crew. They all looked as shocked as he felt. This is a big decision. We need to talk to our leaders on Earth. Of course, Kethvar said. But know this, Captain Morrison. If you say no, the Vorthak will disappear from the galaxy. If you say yes, both our species might have a future together. The meeting ended soon after. As Jake and his crew returned to their ship, no one spoke. They were all thinking about what they had just heard. Back on the Liberty Star, Jake called Earth immediately. He spoke to Admiral Sarah Mitchell, who was in charge of all human exploration ships. They want us to what? Admiral Mitchell asked when Jake explained. Raise their children, Admiral. They think we can teach their young ones not to fight each other. There was a long pause. Jake, do you understand what you're telling me? The Vorthak are asking us to change their entire species. Yes, Admiral. And if we don't help them, they'll all be gone in a few generations. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Vorthak children were dying because they couldn't stop fighting. Maybe humans could help. Maybe they could save an entire species. Admiral, Jake said quietly, I think we have to try. 3 weeks had passed since Jake Morrison first met the Vorthak. Every day he waited for news from Earth. The government leaders were meeting with scientists, generals, and anyone who might have answers. No one had ever been asked to raise alien children before. Finally, the message came. Admiral Sarah Mitchell appeared on the Liberty Star's main screen. She looked tired but determined. Captain Morrison, after much discussion, Earth Command has made a decision. We will help the Vorthak. Jake felt relieved and scared at the same time. What are our orders, Admiral? You will work with the Vorthak to plan this project. We're sending Dr. Patricia Newman to help you. She knows more about child development than anyone else in the fleet. 2 days later, Dr. Patricia Newman arrived on a fast transport ship. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent her whole life studying how children grow and learn. Captain Morrison, she said when they met. I've read all the reports. This is the most important thing humans have ever been asked to do. Jake nodded. Are you ready to meet them? As ready as anyone can be for something like this, the meeting took place on the Vorthak ship again. This time, Kethvar had brought more of his people. There were scientists, doctors, and even some Vorthak parents. Dr. Newman was not afraid of the huge aliens. She walked right up to Kethvar and looked up at him. Ambassador Kethvar, I need to understand exactly what happens to your young. A female Vorthak stepped forward. Her name was Veltana, and she was a mother who had lost many children. Dr. Newman, I have had 12 young ones. Only one is still alive. Tell me about them, Dr. Newman said gently. Veltana's voice shook as she spoke. They are beautiful when they are born, small and perfect, but within days, they begin to fight. First, they fight for food. Then they fight for space. Then they fight just to fight. How old are they when this starts? Dr. Newman asked. Very young, another Vorthak said. This was Mordag, a doctor. Perhaps 5 or 6 of your days, old. Their claws grow quickly. Their instincts tell them that only the strongest should survive. Dr. Newman made notes on her tablet. What have you tried to stop the fighting? Everything, Mordag replied. We have separated them. We have given them more food than they need. We have tried to tire them out with exercise. Nothing works. Jake watched Dr. Newman ask question after question. She wanted to know how Vorthak children were fed, where they slept, how they were taught. The answers painted a picture of young creatures who knew only competition and violence. The problem, Dr. Newman finally said, is that your children learn to fight before they learn anything else. They need to learn cooperation first. Kethvar leaned forward. How do human children learn cooperation? From the moment they are born, human babies depend on others, Dr. Newman explained. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot protect themselves. They must trust adults to take care of them. This teaches them that working together is good. But Vorthak young can feed themselves quickly, Veltana said. They do not need help. That might be the problem, Dr. Newman said. If they don't need help, they don't learn to trust. If they don't learn to trust, they see everyone as an enemy. The room was quiet as the Vorthak thought about this. You believe human caregivers could teach trust? Kethvar asked. I think we have to try, Dr. Newman said. But I need to see Vorthak young ones first. I need to understand how they behave. 3 days later, Dr. Newman found herself in a Vorthak nursery. It was unlike any nursery she had ever seen. The walls were made of strong metal. The floor was covered with soft materials that could be easily cleaned. Everything was built to survive fights. In the center of the room were 6 young Vorthak. They were about 2 weeks old and already the size of human toddlers. Their crystal-like skin was still soft, but their claws were sharp and their eyes were alert. Dr. Newman watched them for hours. The young Vorthak moved constantly. When one found food, the others tried to take it. When one found a comfortable spot to rest, another would push it away. They never played together. They never shared anything. They lived in constant competition. They're beautiful, Dr. Newman told Veltana, who was watching with her. They are also doomed. Veltana replied sadly. By tomorrow, at least 2 will be badly hurt. By next week, half will be dead. Dr. Newman had an idea. May I try something? Veltana looked surprised. What do you want to do? I want to see how they react to me. Very carefully, Dr. Newman entered the nursery area. The young Vorthak immediately noticed her. They stopped fighting and stared at the strange creature who had entered their space. Dr. Newman sat down on the floor. She moved slowly and kept her hands visible. She began to hum softly, the way she might hum to calm a frightened human child. One of the young Vorthak moved closer. Its 4 eyes were fixed on Dr. Newman's face. It tilted its head, listening to the humming sound. Hello, little one, Dr. Newman said in a gentle voice. The young Vorthak took another step closer. The others watched but did not move. For the first time since they had been born, they were not fighting. Dr. Newman reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of meat. She had asked for it earlier, thinking it might be useful. She held it out to the young Vorthak. Instead of grabbing the food and running away, the young creature looked at Dr. Newman's face. It seemed to be trying to understand what she wanted. "It's okay," Dr. Newman said. "This is for you." The young Vorthak gently took the food from her hand. It ate carefully, never taking its eyes off Dr. Newman. Then something amazing happened. Another young Vorthak approached. Instead of fighting for the food, it sat down next to the first one. Dr. Newman gave it food too. Soon all 6 young Vorthak were sitting in a circle around Dr. Newman. They were not fighting. They were not competing. They were simply being near someone who was calm and kind. "Incredible," Veltana whispered from outside the nursery. Dr. Newman stayed with the young Vorthak for 2 more hours. She hummed to them. She gave them food. She spoke to them in gentle tones. And they responded by being peaceful. When she finally left the nursery, the young Vorthak watched her go. As soon as she was gone, they began fighting again. But for 2 hours, they had been different. Later that day, Dr. Newman met with all the Vorthak leaders. "I think this can work," she said. "Your young ones are not evil. They are not naturally violent. They fight because they think they have to. If we can teach them that they don't have to fight, they might choose not to." Kethvar looked hopeful for the first time in weeks. "What do you need?" "A place to work, a team of human caregivers, and permission to try new ways of raising Vorthak children." "You will have everything you need," Kethvar promised. Dr. Newman looked around the room at all the alien faces watching her. "I need you to understand something. This will not be easy. We might fail. And if we succeed, your children will be different from other Vorthak." "Different how?" Zothmar asked. "They will be gentler. They will think before they fight. They will care about others, even those who are weaker than them." "You mean they will be soft," Zothmar said. He did not sound happy about this. "No," Dr. Newman said firmly. "They will be smart. There is a difference between being soft and being wise. Human children learn to be strong by first learning to be safe." She stood up and looked at each Vorthak in turn. "Your species has been strong for thousands of years, but strength without wisdom leads to extinction. We can teach your children to be both strong and wise." Kethvar spoke for all of them. "Dr. Newman, we place the future of our species in your hands." 2 weeks later, construction began on a special facility. It would be built on a human world called New Eden. The facility would have everything needed to care for Vorthak young ones, but it would be run by humans using human methods. Jake Morrison watched the construction plans on his screen. In a few months, human beings would be caring for the children of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. "Captain," Amy Foster said from her station. "Message from Earth. They're asking for volunteers to work at the new facility." Jake was not surprised. This would be the most important job any human had ever been asked to do. The people who took care of these alien children would shape the future of 2 species. "Send a message back," Jake said. "Tell them we need people who are not afraid of hard work. People who understand that the smallest acts of kindness can change the world." The real work was about to begin. The New Eden facility was ready 6 months later. It looked like a cross between a school and a fortress. The walls were strong enough to hold adult Vorthak if needed, but the inside was designed to feel safe and warm. Sam Martinez stood in the main lobby watching the final preparations. He had been chosen to run the facility because he had experience managing difficult projects, but nothing had prepared him for this. "The first group arrives tomorrow," said Linda Hayes, walking up beside him. She was in charge of all the human caregivers. Linda had spent 20 years working with troubled children on Earth. "Are we ready?" Sam asked. Linda looked around at the busy hallway. Human workers were putting finishing touches on the nursery rooms. Each room was designed to hold 6 young Vorthak safely. "As ready as we can be for something that has never been tried before." The team of human caregivers had been carefully chosen. Maria Santos had been a kindergarten teacher for 15 years. She was gentle but firm, and children always seemed to trust her. Roy Chen had worked in hospitals taking care of sick children. He was calm under pressure and never lost his temper. Danny Peterson had been a paramedic before joining the project. He knew how to handle medical emergencies and was not easily frightened. Alex Martinez was a chef who specialized in creating healthy meals that children would actually eat. There were 24 humans in total, working in teams around the clock. Each had volunteered for the most important and dangerous job in human history. Remember, Linda told her team during their final meeting, these are not human children. They are aliens with instincts we do not fully understand, but they are still children. They need care, attention, and love, just like any child. Maria Santos raised her hand. What if they hurt us by accident? They have claws, and they're already stronger than human babies. We wear protective clothing during direct contact, Linda replied. But more importantly, we move slowly and calmly. Dr. Newman's tests showed that they respond to peaceful behavior with peaceful behavior. Roy Chen looked worried. What if we fail? What if they start fighting each other despite everything we do? Sam Martinez answered this one. Then we learn from our mistakes and try again. The Vorthak have given us permission to fail. They know this might not work. The next morning, a Vorthak transport ship landed at New Eden. Kethvar emerged first, followed by several Vorthak parents and doctors. They carried 6 containers, each holding a newly hatched Vorthak. Dr. Patricia Newman was there to meet them. She had spent the last 6 months studying everything about Vorthak biology and behavior. How are they doing? She asked. Veltana, the Vorthak mother, looked sad. They are already showing aggressive behavior. 2 tried to bite each other during the journey. That's normal for their age, Dr. Newman said gently. Let's get them settled in their new home. The human caregivers had practiced this moment many times. They moved the containers into the first nursery room carefully and quietly. The young Vorthak inside were awake and alert. Their 4 eyes tracked every movement. Maria Santos approached the first container. Inside was a young Vorthak about the size of a human 2-year-old. Its crystalline skin was still soft and its claws were small but sharp. Hello, little one, Maria said in the same gentle voice she had used with thousands of human children. My name is Maria. I'm going to take care of you. The young Vorthak tilted its head and listened to her voice. Its body was tense, ready to fight, but it did not attack. Maria opened the container slowly. The young Vorthak could have jumped out immediately, but it stayed still. It was watching Maria's face and listening to her calm tone. That's right, Maria said. You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you. One by one, the human caregivers released the young Vorthak into the nursery room. Instead of immediately fighting each other, the young aliens stood still. They were in a new place, with strange creatures they had never seen before. Roy Chen began distributing food. Instead of throwing it to them and letting them fight over it, he gave each young Vorthak its own portion. He knelt down to their level and spoke to each one individually. This is yours, he said to each young Vorthak. You don't have to fight for it. There is enough for everyone. The young Vorthak ate their food but kept watching the humans. They seemed confused by the lack of competition. In their species, mealtime was always a battle. Danny Peterson noticed that one of the young Vorthak seemed tired. Instead of being forced to stay alert and fight, it was allowed to rest. Danny created a small safe space with soft materials where it could sleep without fear of attack. For the first time in their lives, the young Vorthak experienced peace. The first day went better than anyone had hoped. There were a few minor incidents. One young Vorthak tried to take food from another, but the human caregivers quickly intervened. Instead of letting them fight it out, the humans showed them how to share. Look, Maria said, dividing a piece of meat into 2 parts. Now you both have some. No fighting needed. The young Vorthak watched this with great interest. The concept of sharing was completely new to them. By the end of the first week, something remarkable was happening. The young Vorthak had stopped trying to fight each other constantly. They still had aggressive moments, but the humans were always there to redirect their energy into other activities. Alex Martinez discovered that the young Vorthak loved music. When he played soft melodies during feeding time, they became calmer and more peaceful. Soon, The facility was filled with gentle music throughout the day. "It's working," Dr. Newman told Sam Martinez as they watched the young Vorthak through the observation window. "They're learning that they don't have to fight to survive." But success brought new challenges. Word of the project had spread throughout human space. Some people were worried about what they were doing. Commander Carl Watson arrived from Earth Defense Command to inspect the facility. He was a military man who believed that making the Vorthak less aggressive might be dangerous for humans. "You're changing them," he told Sam Martinez during his visit. "These young Vorthak are nothing, like their parents. What happens when they grow up? Will they still be strong enough to defend themselves?" Sam watched the young Vorthak playing together in the nursery. Yes, they were different from adult Vorthak. They shared food instead of fighting over it. They comforted each other when someone was hurt. They seemed to enjoy being peaceful. "They're not weak," Sam replied. "They're learning to choose when to fight and when not to fight. That might make them stronger, not weaker." Commander Watson was not convinced. "The Vorthak are the most dangerous species in the galaxy because they're naturally aggressive. If you take that away, what's left?" Dr. Newman joined the conversation. "Intelligence, strategy, cooperation. These young ones are learning skills that adult Vorthak never develop." To prove her point, she showed Commander Watson something amazing. The young Vorthak had begun working together to solve problems. When one wanted to reach something high up, the others would help by forming a living ladder. When one was sad, the others would gather around to comfort it. Adult Vorthak would never do this, Dr. Newman explained. They would see helping others as weakness. But these young ones are learning that helping others makes everyone stronger. 3 months into the project, the first real test came. One of the young Vorthak, a female the humans had named Hope, became very sick. In normal Vorthak society, the other young ones would have abandoned her or even attacked her weakness. Instead, something beautiful happened. The other young Vorthak stayed close to Hope. They brought her food and water. They kept her warm with their bodies. They seemed to understand that she needed help. Maria Santos was amazed. "They're showing compassion. That's something no adult Vorthak has ever been observed doing." The sick young Vorthak recovered, thanks in part to the care of her companions. When Kethavar heard about this, he was silent for a long time. "My people have never cared for the weak," he finally said. "We have always believed that only the strong deserve to survive. But perhaps we have been wrong." Veltana, who visited the facility often, watched her species' young ones with wonder. "They are still Vorthak," she said. "They are still strong and brave, but they are also kind. How is this possible?" Linda Hayes smiled as she watched the young Vorthak playing a game that involved cooperation instead of competition. "Children learn what they live. If they live with fighting, they learn to fight. If they live with kindness, they learn to be kind." Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some adult Vorthak worried that their species was becoming too soft. Some humans worried that they were creating a problem for the future. But the young Vorthak continued to grow and learn. They were developing into something new, creatures that combined the strength and intelligence of the Vorthak with the compassion and cooperation of humans. As the first year of the project ended, it was clear that something unprecedented was happening. The fiercest species in the universe was learning to be gentle. And in learning gentleness, they were discovering new kinds of strength they had never imagined. The experiment was succeeding beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But the real test was still to come. 2 years had passed since the first young Vorthak arrived at New Eden. The facility now housed 36 young aliens, divided into 6 groups by age. The oldest group was approaching what would be considered teenage years for their species. Sam Martinez walked through the facility's main corridor, listening to sounds he never thought he would hear in a Vorthak nursery. There was laughter. Young Vorthak were actually playing games together and enjoying themselves, but not everyone was happy with what they were seeing. General Krexthal arrived from the Vorthak homeworld with a group of military advisors. He was old, even for a Vorthak, and his crystal armor was scarred from countless battles. He had come to see what the humans were doing to his species' children. "This is wrong," General Krexthal declared after watching the young Vorthak for an hour. They play instead of training for war. They share instead of taking what they need. They show mercy to the weak. Kethvar, who had become a permanent ambassador to the project, tried to explain. General, these young ones are healthier and stronger than any Vorthak children in our history. Their survival rate is nearly 100%. Survival is not enough, General Krexthal replied angrily. They must be warriors. Look at them. They hesitate before striking. They ask permission before taking action. They have been made weak by human sentiment. Dr. Patricia Newman overheard this conversation. She approached the group of Vorthak leaders with confidence. General Krexthal, would you like to see a demonstration of their abilities? The general's 4 eyes focused on the small human woman. What kind of demonstration? A test of their combat skills and tactical thinking, Dr. Newman said. But first, let me ask you something. What makes a great warrior? Strength, speed, the will to destroy enemies without hesitation, General Krexthal answered immediately. Those are certainly important, Dr. Newman agreed. But what about strategy? The ability to work with others? Knowing when not to fight? Before the general could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. It was not a drill. Something was wrong. Sam Martinez's voice came over the communication system. All staff to emergency stations. We have intruders in Section 7. Newman and the Vorthak leaders rushed to the security center. On the screens, they could see 6 armed humans moving through the facility's outer corridors. They wore military gear and carried weapons. Who are they? Kethvar asked. Commander, Carl Watson, who had been monitoring the facility remotely, appeared on a communication screen. They're members of a human group called Earth First. They believe this project is dangerous to humanity. They've come to destroy it. Linda Hayes was in Section 7 with a group of the oldest young Vorthak. These 6 aliens were now almost adult size, standing 8 feet tall with strong, sharp claws. But they had been raised with human values of protecting others and avoiding unnecessary violence. Stay calm, Linda told the young Vorthak as they heard gunfire in the distance. Remember what we've taught you about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The young Vorthak looked at each other, then at Linda. Their names were hope, courage, wisdom, honor, peace, and strength. The humans had given them these names because they represented what the project was trying to achieve. Hope, the female who had been sick years earlier, stepped forward. Linda, there are smaller ones in the next room. We should protect them. The intruders have weapons, Linda warned. This could be very dangerous. Courage, the largest of the group, looked determined. We are strong. We can protect others. Is that not what you have taught us? Before Linda could respond, the intruders reached their section. 6 heavily armed humans burst through the doorway, expecting to find defenseless alien children and human caretakers. Instead, they found themselves facing 6 young Vorthak, who moved with perfect coordination. Stay back, the lead intruder shouted, raising his weapon. We're here to shut down this project. These aliens are too dangerous to be allowed to live. Hope stepped forward, her hands empty and visible. We do not wish to fight you. Please leave this place peacefully. The intruder was confused. He had expected savage alien monsters. Instead, he found a young Vorthak trying to negotiate. You're not supposed to talk, he said, his weapon wavering. We are not what you expected, Wisdom said calmly. We have been taught to think before we act. Perhaps you should do the same. In the security center, General Krexthal watched in amazement. They are negotiating instead of attacking. No Vorthak would ever show such restraint. But the intruders were not interested in talking. They opened fire. What happened next would be talked about for years. The young Vorthak moved like dancers, dodging the weapon fire while protecting Linda and moving toward the nursery where younger aliens were sleeping. Strength grabbed a metal table and used it as a shield. Honor moved behind the intruders, cutting off their escape route. Peace and courage worked together to disarm 2 of the attackers without seriously hurting them. But the most amazing thing was what hope and wisdom did. Instead of fighting, they focused entirely on getting Linda and the younger Vorthak to safety. "This way," Hope said, guiding Linda toward a secure room. "The little ones are more important than stopping the intruders." In less than 5 minutes, the situation was over. The intruders were captured, the facility was secure, and not a single person or young Vorthak had been seriously injured. General Krexthal stared at the security screens in silence. The young Vorthak had shown strength, speed, and tactical brilliance. But they had also shown mercy, self-control, and a willingness to put others' safety before their own glory. "They did not kill the intruders," he said finally. "No," Dr. Newman replied. "They chose not to kill. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them wise." Keithvar looked at his old military commander. "General, they protected the innocent. They worked as a team. They thought about consequences before acting. Are these not the qualities of great warriors?" General Krexthal was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke slowly. "I have led armies for 50 years. I have conquered 12 worlds. But I have never seen warriors who could choose mercy without losing strength. The incident changed everything." Word spread throughout both human and Vorthak space about what had happened at New Eden. The young Vorthak had proven that they were not weak or corrupted. They were evolved. Commander Watson arrived at the facility 2 days later. He looked troubled as he met with Sam Martinez and Dr. Newman. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I thought making them less aggressive would make them less effective. But what they did was more impressive than anything I've seen from normal Vorthak warriors." "How so?" Dr. Newman asked. "They accomplished their mission with minimal casualties. They protected civilians while neutralizing threats. They worked as a perfect team. Most importantly, they made good decisions under pressure." Sam Martinez nodded. "They've learned to be smart about when and how to use their strength. But success brought new challenges. Other alien species had heard about the project. Some were interested in learning from it. Others saw it as a threat. The Skrull Collective, ancient enemies of the Vorthak, were particularly concerned. If the Vorthak were becoming even more effective warriors, they might become unstoppable. 3 weeks after the incident, Veltana visited her daughter Hope at the facility. The young Vorthak was now taller than her mother and stronger too. But she was also something no adult Vorthak had ever been. "You saved human lives during the attack," Veltana said. "They are our family," Hope replied simply. "Family protects family." Veltana felt something she had never experienced before: pride mixed with love. Adult Vorthak rarely felt emotional connections to their offspring. But watching Hope, she understood what humans called parental love. "Are you still Vorthak?" Veltana asked. Hope thought about this question seriously. "I am Vorthak. I am strong and brave. I can fight when I need to. But I am also more than what Vorthak have been before. I can choose not to fight. I can protect instead of destroy. I can love instead of only compete." That evening, the young Vorthak gathered in their common area as they did every night. They shared the day's experiences and discussed what they had learned. It was a human custom that had become part of their routine. "The intruders were afraid of us," Courage observed. "They thought we were monsters," Peace added. Wisdom, who was considered the smartest of the group, spoke thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is the greatest victory of all. We proved that being strong does not require being cruel. We proved that mercy is not weakness." Hope looked around at her companions. "The humans taught us that there are many kinds of strength. The strength to fight. The strength to protect. The strength to forgive. The strength to choose." As they talked, human caregivers listened from nearby. Maria Santos wiped away a tear as she heard these alien children discussing philosophy and ethics with more wisdom than many adult humans showed. The project had succeeded beyond anyone's dreams. The fiercest species in the universe had learned to be wise. But the real test was yet to come. Soon, these young Vorthak would be adults. They would have to find their place in a galaxy that was not sure what to make of them. The future of two species hung in the balance. 5 years had passed since the first young Vorthak arrived at New Eden. The oldest group had grown into full adults, standing 12 feet tall with crystal armor that gleamed in the light. They were magnificent and terrifying, but also something no one had expected them to be. They were gentle. Admiral Jake Morrison, now in command of the entire sector, stood in the facility's main hall watching Hope lead a group of newly arrived human children on a tour. These were the children of facility workers, and they showed no fear of the giant alien who spoke to them with kindness. And this, Hope was saying to a small human girl, is where we learn to paint. Would you like to see some of our artwork? The little girl nodded eagerly. Hope carefully picked her up with claws that could cut through steel and carried her to see colorful paintings that covered one wall. The paintings showed humans and Vorthak working together, playing together, and protecting each other. Dr. Patricia Newman, now elderly but still sharp, approached Admiral Morrison. Hard to believe this is the same species that once conquered half the galaxy. They're still capable of conquest, Admiral Morrison replied. They're just choosy about when to use that ability. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Orbital Defense Station. Lieutenant Commander Nancy Ross appeared on the screen, her face pale with worry. Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the system. It's the Skrull Collective. Admiral Morrison felt his blood turn cold. The Skrull were an ancient enemy of the Vorthak. They were nearly as dangerous as the Vorthak themselves, but they fought with numbers instead of individual strength. Intelligence reports suggested they had over 200 ships. How long until they arrive? Admiral Morrison asked. 18 hours, Lieutenant Commander Ross replied. Dr. Newman looked worried. Why would the Skrull come here? New Eden isn't strategically important. The answer came from Kethvar, who had been monitoring the communication. The old Vorthak ambassador looked grim. They come to destroy this place. The Skrull fear what we have created here. What do you mean? Admiral Morrison asked. For thousands of years, the Skrull have survived because they knew how Vorthak would behave. We were predictable. We fought alone. We never showed mercy. We never worked with other species, but these young ones. Kethvar gestured toward Hope and her companions. They are different. The Skrull do not know how to fight enemies who think before they act. Admiral Morrison activated the facility's emergency communication system. All senior staff to the command center immediately. Within minutes, the command center was filled with humans and Vorthak. Sam Martinez, Linda Hayes, and the other facility leaders were there. So were Hope, Courage, Wisdom, Honor, Peace, and Strength, the 6 oldest of the human-raised Vorthak. The situation is simple, Admiral Morrison explained. The Skrull are coming with enough ships to destroy this entire system. Our defense fleet has 50 ships. We are outnumbered 4-1. General Krexthal, who had become a supporter of the project, spoke up. Traditional Vorthak reinforcements are 6 days away. The battle will be over long before they arrive. Hope stepped forward. Her voice was calm but determined. Admiral Morrison, we want to help defend our home. You've never been in a real space battle, Admiral Morrison said gently. This isn't like the incident with the intruders. This is war. Wisdom spoke next. We have studied military tactics and strategy. We understand what we would be facing. Courage added, we also understand something that neither traditional Vorthak nor Skrull understand. We know how to work with humans as partners. Admiral Morrison looked at these young aliens who had grown up in his sector. They were asking to risk their lives to protect the place where they had been raised, but they had no experience with real combat. What are you proposing? He asked. Strength, the largest of the group answered. Let us serve on your ships. We can work alongside human crews. Together we might be able to do things that neither species could do alone. Dr. Newman was shaking her head. It's too dangerous. You're too important to risk in battle. Honor looked at the elderly human who had helped raise them. Dr. Newman, you taught us that some things are worth fighting for. The children in this facility are worth fighting for. The future we represent is worth fighting for. Peace, whose name seemed ironic given the circumstances, spoke softly. We do not want war. But if war comes to our home, we will defend it. That night, Admiral Morrison made the hardest decision of his career. He would allow the young Vorthak to join the defense fleet, but they would be paired with experienced human crews who could guide them. Hope was assigned to the flagship Unity alongside Admiral Morrison himself. Courage and wisdom went to the heavy cruiser Defender. Honor and peace were placed on the fast attack ship Guardian. Strength joined the crew of the battleship Protector. As the fleet prepared for battle, something unprecedented happened. Human and Vorthak crews worked together in ways that had never been attempted before. The young Vorthak shared their superior strength and reflexes, while the humans provided experience and tactical knowledge. On the Unity's bridge, Hope stood beside Admiral Morrison as they watched the Skrull fleet approach. It was a terrifying sight. 200 ships, each bristling with weapons and filled with warriors who had never known defeat against the Vorthak. "Admiral," said the communications officer, "the Skrull are sending a message." The view screen showed a Skrull war leader. The aliens looked like giant insects with multiple arms and cold, calculating eyes. "Humans and Vorthak," the Skrull leader said, "you have created an abomination. These hybrid creatures you have made threaten the natural order of the galaxy. Surrender them to us, and we will spare your lives." Admiral Morrison stepped forward. "The young Vorthak are under our protection. If you want them, you'll have to go through us." "So be it," the Skrull leader replied. "You will all die for your mistake." The battle began at dawn. The Skrull attacked in massive waves, using their numerical advantage to overwhelm the smaller human fleet. But something they had not expected began to happen. The ships with young Vorthak aboard fought differently than any ships they had ever faced. Instead of the usual Vorthak tactic of single combat, these ships worked in perfect coordination with their human partners. Hope proved invaluable on the Unity's bridge. Her 4 eyes could track multiple targets simultaneously, and her quick reflexes allowed her to spot threats that human sensors missed. 3 Skrull fighters approaching from below, she called out. "They're using the asteroid field for cover." "I see them," Admiral Morrison replied, adjusting course to intercept. But Hope was already moving. "No, Admiral. Let me handle this." She activated the ship's point defense systems with precision that no human could match. The 3 attacking fighters were destroyed before they could fire a shot. On the Defender, courage and wisdom worked with the human crew to execute maneuvers that should have been impossible. They used their strength to manually operate damaged systems while helping the humans plan strategies that confused the Skrull. "They're not fighting like Vorthak," the human captain observed. "They're thinking 3 moves ahead." The most amazing moment came when the Guardian, with honor and peace aboard, found itself surrounded by 8 Skrull ships. In traditional Vorthak thinking, they would have fought until destroyed, taking as many enemies as possible with them. Instead, honor and peace worked with their human crew to do something unprecedented. They surrendered. The Skrull ships moved in to capture what they thought was a defeated enemy. But it was a trap. The Guardian had pretended to be disabled while actually being fully operational. When the Skrull ships were close enough, the Guardian unleashed a devastating attack that destroyed 6 of the 8 enemy ships. "Did they just use deception in battle?" Admiral Morrison asked in amazement. "They used strategy," Hope replied. "They chose the best way to win instead of the most glorious way to die." The battle lasted 12 hours. When it was over, the Skrull fleet was retreating. They had lost over half their ships, while the human defense fleet had lost only 8 vessels. But the real victory was what had been proven. Humans and Vorthak could work together as true partners. The young Vorthak had not lost their strength or their fighting ability. They had gained wisdom about how to use those gifts most effectively. 3 days later, representatives from dozens of alien species arrived at New Eden. They wanted to see these creatures who had changed everything they thought they knew about warfare and cooperation. Dr. Newman stood in the facility's garden watching Hope play with human children while discussing advanced physics with a team of alien scientists. She was fierce when she needed to be, gentle when gentleness was called, for and wise enough to know the difference. "We did it," Dr. Newman said to Admiral Morrison. "We saved their species." Admiral Morrison smiled. "I think they saved ours too." They've shown us that there's more than one way to be strong. In the years that followed, the Guardian Protocol would expand to dozens of worlds. Other species would bring their young to be raised alongside humans. The galaxy would become a place where strength and wisdom could coexist. But it all started with a simple idea. The fiercest species in the universe had learned to trust humans with their most precious gift, their children.